All right, we're back again, back for another exciting show. And if you think last week's show was a heat up, um, then this is going to be pretty much another jump off to that show. When you think about last week, we talked about 50-50 relationships, and this one is about, blended families. So we all know that, at this stage of the game, depending on how old you are, you can almost guarantee that if you get involved with someone, that they're going to have children. Maybe they're grown, and then sometimes people were late starters with a family. So at that point, uh, they may have kids that's still in the household. So it's a lot of things to think about. But good evening to everybody who joined. Marcia, I think I seen Tamika Dean, uh, who else? Herbert, what's going on? Ed the Poet. Uh, thanks for joining me tonight in the Counselor's Corner. So let me read the description right quick. So why do some women with children dislike dating single fathers? And this all ties into the blended family thing. We all know blended families are on the rise, and realistically, if you are in your mid 30s and above, you can expect that many people in the dating pool will have children. The question is, does that person's lifestyle matches yours, and are you able to adapt? My co-host Herb Lewis has three essential talking points. One, who rules do you follow? Number two, children's discipline. Um, does the step parent opinion matters and when? And three, finances. Who has the debt and credit issues? As you can see, we have a lot to discuss tonight. Please join us for another great episode, and please share the video. It's valuable information. Anytime you can get adults together in a platform where it's not loud music and you yelling, and well, sometimes there's some yelling on here, but it's always a bonus to have good adult conversation. So, but before that, I think I do got a counselor's concern. Oh, I got a bunch of concerns, but I'm only gonna focus on this one because I got some stuff I've just been holding back on, and I'm pondering when to come out with it. They say quiet people have a lot to say, and people don't even know by nature I'm really quiet. But this controversial counselor alias, sometimes it has me kind of revved up. But I got some stuff to say, but I just been holding back. And when I say it, people ain't gonna be happy. They not gonna be happy. But I don't care at this point. But I'm not gonna get into that right now. One of my concerns is, and I spoke on this before, and I made a post this morning because every damn morning, seem like when I'm getting dressed for work, in the news, local news, national news, it keep popping up with these kids missing. Kids are missing over and over and over again, like everywhere. Kids are missing. What is the problem? What is the problem? Now, I posted something earlier. I said, why are these kids missing? It wasn't like I was like a multiple choice thing. These are three things that I think strongly on why they're missing. Number one, parental neglect, lack of attention. Number two, lack of community togetherness. And three, just some sick ass people in this world. Yeah, I know I cuss on here. I always get a disclaimer. So when I say parental neglect, I look at situations even when I get off work, and sometimes I get off work late, and it gets dark now. It gets dark early. And even when it's not dark, by 8 o'clock, and if you have a elementary age child, that child probably should be in the house, like taking a bath, going through like their nightly routine, getting their stuff situated. They shouldn't be out blocks, 2 or 3 blocks from where they live, riding around on bikes at 8 o'clock on a school night. Especially little girls roaming around. We already know how they make these clothes for Girls, everything, or boys too. Everything is tight as hell or too small, and they're walking around, some of them by themselves. And we have sick individuals lurking in neighborhoods, lurking on a regular basis. That bothers me. It bothers me because I look at them like they should be in the house. And now that it's the winter time, it gets dark like at 5. It's times down here in Baltimore, the weather's still decent, maybe like 50, 60, even though it's supposed to get cold this week. And you have kids riding around on bikes in the dark. And I say to myself, it's only a matter of time before that little bike right there, that little black and green fluorescent bike, is going to be on the curb somewhere upside down. And that means somebody got the kid. So that's when I say parental neglect. I don't know if you say go outside, uh, stay out there, or whatever the case is. I know back in our days, parents used to say they get out the house, but we used to travel in packs. And there was the street light rule that you need to be somewhere around visible, that if a parent opened up the door, screen door, that they could see you. These kids be all over the place, all over the place. And it's pissing me off because you look and you're like, wow, like I said, it seems like every other day there's a missing child for whatever reason. When I say community togetherness, because we had people monitoring, being able to see who's on this street, who lives here. But again, I think another issue is, I was telling one of my friends earlier that it's too many spend the night adults that live in the same city, but they go stay at somebody else's house for 2 or 3 days. Now I know me and most adults, unless you're out of town, you like to be in the comfort of your own home. You might go visit somebody, but after a while, you want to go home and get situated at home. It's too many damn adults that go over somebody's house, another adult house, family members or whatever, and stay there for 2 or 3 days. When you start seeing all these random cars on your street and they stand for 2 or 3 days, that's suspect to me. It's suspect, and there's a reason. Whether they say, I'm going over there because there's a lot of little girls that and that's how my mind operates. A lot of little girls on that street, so I'm gonna go over there and hang out, whatever. Nah, man, not cool. Not cool. Stop inviting your family up. Come over the weekends. And I can't dictate how people run their lives, but I'm just gonna throw it out there because that's who I am. Then they asses need to go back to where they at, because they up to no good. Either they scoping up your house, doing something. There's a reason why a grown person who lives 10 minutes away decides to go stay at somebody's house for a couple days. Shit don't add up to me. And then again, like I said, just sick people, mental health issues, or they can't get nobody else, so they rather steal it from a kid. And the point is, and more than likely, when you take it from a kid, you end up killing that kid or doing something. So you got to watch your children. You got to set rules. You got to set boundaries, and that's a perfect segue into blended families, because we know that it's a lot going on. And you have to make sure who you're bringing around your children. You have to talk finances. You have to talk boundaries. You have to get on the same page on how y'all gonna manufacture that household. And it's a lot. So I think we need to discuss this. Now, that's enough of me. I ramble for my 10 minutes. I'm gonna bring Herb in here and let him go. And then, we go back and forth. Yeah, I know if you want to call in, the number is right up in the description, 605-313-5375. Access code 268-3228. And I know I went by fast, or some of you are like, but you posted in the thing? No, stroll up on your phone and look, it's right there. And some of you regulars, y'all should write this down if y'all know that y'all going to come in on the show. So Herb, I said a lot, and I'm heated. I mean, whatever you want to tackle, you could go right into the blended thing, or you could speak to this. These kids just roaming around and parents just chilling, whether they smoking, sipping, doing whatever, but their kids are missing. I guess
I'm gonna take that point. I'm gonna walk it. I'm gonna walk it through the front door. You know, we tend to blame kids for a whole lot, and understandably so. But really, the kids aren't to blame. The kids are in the result of the society falling apart, and just basic things. I mean, you look at it now. You can't even correct a kid when you see a kid doing something blatantly wrong and potentially lethal to either himself, herself, or the group of people that they're with, without catching some type of backlash from either an adult or one of their quote unquote parents. So, you know, I'm saddened by the state of affairs with the way kids are being raised. And like I said, it's through no fault of their own. I mean, at a certain point in time, you would expect kids to reach a level of maturity and understanding. But these kids are severely retarded in terms of their growth compared to where we were. At 14, I was a latchkey kid. I could not imagine any of these kids at that age being able to take care of themselves at home while their parents are out working or they're getting home late from whatever the case is. But like I said, I'll fault society for that because that's the way society wants them. Society wants these kids to the point where they're being raised from literally the cradle to the grave by the government. And if you're not careful, that's exactly what's going to happen. I think that's part of the reason why we have a group of kids, you know, mostly from the millennial generation or up, that seem to lack a willingness to go out there and make things happen. Often you hear about the millennial generation saying that there aren't enough life-sustaining or living wage jobs out here, and then you probably heard the Fight for 15, which is the attempt to get fast food workers, you know, legally $15 an hour wage. And what people don't realize about businesses is businesses don't stay in business to lose money. They're in the business of turning a profit. And we see this in New York. I know the preliminary reports coming out of New York City. When I say New York, I'm speaking of New York City. The preliminary reports are that business is up across the board. Profits are up, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But hours worked are down. And that's a result of people not having the critical and the foresight to understand that nothing in society happens in the vacuum. And it's often said that nature abhors a vacuum. So if something stops, something's going to move in and take up that space. You know, so that's going to lead me to tonight's topic of blended families. Blended families are on the rise. According to Pew Research, 40% of new marriages, including one person who was previously married, and 20% of weddings featured two people who had both been married prior. Many of those remarriages involve children who are thrust into a world of stepmothers, stepfathers, step-siblings, step-grandparents. Of course, becoming a step-family doesn't always, you know, go seamlessly as it did in the Brady Bunch. And I'm sure if you're about my age and maybe David's age, we all remember the Brady Bunch. You know, a little fact point about the Brady Bunch is the gentleman who played the father was actually gay. I found that out watching documentaries, so that was interesting little tidbit. But anyway, bringing two families together under roof can be quite a challenge. And one of the things that in the talking points that I think needs a great deal of attention are the rules. So who is going to be tasked with setting those rules? We know in today's society, you know, 50-50 equality, the Me Too movement, third wave feminism, all those things now have pushed women either to the forefront of their home as breadwinners, as disciplinarians, and as rule setters, and they also put them in a pitched battle with the masculine principle. And something else I want to address real quickly is that old nonsense, toxic masculinity. There's nothing masculine, there's nothing toxic about masculinity. Okay, let's just get that out there in the open. People who think men and heterosexual men who actually want to do well, are toxic, need to go back and think what their life would be like about 40 years ago, where all the adventures that we take for granted weren't around. And women really were actually stuck at home, not working, not having their own money, not able to go out and learn and do all the things that we take for granted now in our society. And to really get a succinct understanding of that, just imagine what your life would be like if you were living in a Muslim country. Because that's essentially what feminism is trying to break. And eventually, all of that is going to spread to those Eastern cultures. It's just a matter of time. It's happening in China, it's happening in North Korea, and to a lesser extent, India. And those are staunch patriarchal societies. So let's just, let's just dispel that myth about toxic masculinity. One of the things that you're going to have to deal with a blended family is sibling rivalries. And this comes from this article that I'm reading from, comes from Very Well Family. And it lists on the sibling rivalries and how to fix it. So first talk to your spouse so you're on the same page about sibling rivalries. Read and be always best communication. From you to you, your mate and your mate to you, and more importantly, from your children to you. Okay, your children don't need to know what you think, because more often than not, by the time they're 5 or 6, they already know what you think, unless it's something new. All right, so nothing will work for you if you as a parent are blaming the other mate's biological children for causing a rift. If you have different disciplinary styles, you're more than likely to encounter problems. Consequences and reward need to be the same for all children, no matter how it used to work before you two got married. And I think that's a very, very, very good point. As we get older, we tend to become fixed or set in our ways, as they like to say, because they've always worked. So with blended families, you might have to throw what used to work out the window, because if you marry somebody that has a special needs child, particularly somebody with autism, you're going to have to change an awful lot. You know, I've been in that situation, and I don't have children, so for me it was a little different. And I wasn't married, of course, dating a female at that time. This is probably about 7, maybe 8 years ago. Actually, almost 9 years ago, because I've been in my current house now 7 years to this day. So you have to be able to become flexible in your life and in how you meter out discipline, because somebody, an autistic child, even if they're highly functioning, they don't have that level of comprehension that the average 12-year-old child may have. So, just bear that in mind. Also, you have to keep in mind that children, just like adults, they get resentful at certain things. So you have to acknowledge that resentment, and once again, you have to sit there and you have to listen to them. And listening to them doesn't necessarily mean that they're right. But you have to allow them to think, because if they don't feel involved in the decision-making process, and believe me, it's a decision-making process that should include them. You don't have to do what they say, but just take it as advisement. They may see something from a perspective that you don't. They may understand something from a perspective that you don't. And I know that sounds like an oxymoron. How can a kid understand something that an adult does? It's just a different way of looking at things. Like the old adage, there's more than one way to skin a cat. So if you're always skin a cat this way and somebody else comes along and says, well, why don't you try this way? No, because it works. Now you're being inflexible. So just listen. Like I said, the line of communication from the kid to the adult is always, and I'm going to say this, people probably give some kick, and I'll probably give you some kickback. It's always more important for the child to listen to the adult, for the adult to listen to the child when it comes to understanding how that child feels. Because you don't know how that child feels. You may know how that child works, but you don't know how that child feels, even though you spend that much time with it, particularly during the school year, because once that child leaves school, peer pressure sets in, And if they're of that age, puberty starts to set in. So now you don't necessarily have their full-on attention. And just like Dave said at the top of the show, when it's constantly concerns, you have these kids running out here, they're wearing clothes that aren't necessarily age appropriate. And I see it all day when I'm working my secondary job. I see kids, particularly younger females, that are just almost like their mothers. I saw Daisy Duke shorts being worn, and these were about girls that were probably 15, 16, really had no business wearing them. Not because they're too short, but because they're too tight. And I say this to one of the other staff out there. I said, do they understand about vaginal health and how unhealthy that is, how unsanitary that is? And he said no. And we just look at each other, shaking our heads, and we keep on walking. So, ladies, it's incumbent upon you as the first teachers to set some parameters. And I know, the fatherless home rate is going across every demographic. No demographic is untouched.
Hold on, let me play devil's advocate on this. I mean, you're saying a lot of parameters and a lot of things that's been said. Like, who would sign up for that? What quality guy or quality woman would sign up for that? Because I guess initially, you might start dating someone, wherever y'all met at, you're enjoying each other, then you say, well, I want to introduce you to the kids and stuff like that. So for example, if it's a single guy and he has kids and they're older, so and they're with their mother, or they may be in college or whatever the case is, but now he has started seeing someone, and she has school age children anywhere from K through 12. Who's going to go into that? What would make someone say to themselves, you know what, I want to go through all this. I want to have the patience. I want to set these rules and the groundwork and all that stuff. Like, to me, it just, that's kind of puzzling to think someone may sign up for that. Just throwing that out there. Like, why go through that for some people? And that's the mentality of some people. They're like, I'm not about to get cut up and all. We cool, we can hang out and all that, but I want no parts of this person's household or getting closer to them or their children or whatever the case is. I just wanted to throw that out there.
Well, to answer that question, it comes down to society. Blended families they're nothing new, especially for African Americans. Our history in the United States of America is one of blended families. I mean, when you come from a time where your siblings literally could be taken from the womb and moved to another plantation, blended families already became a way of living. So for us, it was a means of survival. So now you take that way of life and you extrapolate it and then you factor it by 6, 7, 8 generations. For us, it's nothing new, but the thing that's changed is the culture. Because the adage that it takes a village to raise a family, in part, is due to that. Because if we go back to some tribal ways in Africa, some villages still practice that doctrine. So just because a man has a biological children doesn't mean the village isn't responsible for his or her upbringing, their rearing, their teaching, their morals, their everything. They're responsible for making sure that this individual has the means to support themselves and to be able to raise a family. So it's a continuation of things. So it's nothing new. Now, in today's society, especially Western culture, I agree with you, actually. Who wants to sign up for that? But if you look at the choices, it's either be celibate, just engage in consensual sex relationships, or you choose to blend the family. Some people, they're willing to bite that nail and take the plunge. They're willing to say, gnaw their teeth and just say, okay, I'm going to give this one a try. And for some people, that's successful, and for some, it isn't. But usually, if it's successful, that's because those people have followed some type of arrangement that's been, talked about, debated, rehashed, and said, this is what we're going to expect. And that was one of the other things that I got from the article, the Very Well Family, was everyone needs attention. And I think that's part of what you might be getting at too. And how do you actually give, let's say a man has 2 kids, woman has 2 kids, whether they're from the same parent is immaterial, because you're bringing them into the relationship, and eventually they're going to get together, whether it's under one roof all the time or on social outings. There has to be some type of standard set in terms of behavior. There has to be an understanding of what the expectation is. And more often than not, that understanding is never spoken about. It's never communicated. And this is the one time, or one of the few times, in my opinion, where the communication could be from the adult to the child needs to be crystal clear so they understand what's expected. I know when I take my mentoring group out of town, I tell them, look, you already know what I expect of you. I'm not trying to have to yell at you for anything that you shouldn't be doing that isn't age appropriate. If you're doing something that's going to potentially get you in trouble, you already know I'm coming down on you. I'm coming down like the hammer of Thor. Well, I'm not going to yell at you because I don't believe in yelling at kids, especially preteens and teenagers. They know enough to know right from wrong, and anybody can question me on that, and I'll ask you a simple question.
Well,
how often do you see kids running traffic?
Well, let's
they know right from wrong.
Let's be honest about that. In not all cases, but most of the time, when you're someone and that person has 2 kids and you have 2 kids, but as a man, your kids don't stay with you on full time. They may come every other weekend or every weekend. Not all, but a lot of times it's usually some bitterness from that relationship before with the child's mother. So you have your ways of doing things in your new home, and now your actual kids come in and the mother is still putting stuff. I mean, a lot of that's going on. His wife or his new one, she better not let me know everything that's going on. What you eat this weekend, calling the kids constantly on FaceTime and just trying to get gauging everything and not saying they're with their dad. They're good. They're good. We didn't work out, but he's never done anything to harm them or put them in jeopardy. But it's so much that kids it's like a tug of war, and they enjoy being with their dad and they have a good time. Then again, some of them say they don't want to go over there because they don't like your dad's girlfriend or your wife. But a lot of that is put out there because of adults. And like you had mentioned earlier, and I've said this numerous times, most kid mistakes or things that they go through is mistakes that adults have made or stuff that they put out there. Because even when you think about racism and different things like that, kids will be kids. But when their minds is infiltrated by adult thoughts and their experiences, it triggers down on kids. So you have those issues going back and forth.
To that point, adults have to be very, very cognizant that they're not imposing their anxiety and their problems and projecting those onto their kids. Because kids are like sponges. They don't miss much. Whether you say it or do it, they're always watching. Now, I don't care who says what. I don't care how sneaky you think you're being. If you're doing something at home and your kids are around, there's a very good chance that they know about it, they haven't said anything, or they will find out about it. This is why, the old line that people used to, or that women used to use, let me say, oh, he's just my cousin, don't worry about him, or he's your uncle. Kids aren't stupid. They may not have all the information, but they have enough information to make an educated guess. So, a lot of things that parents do, they have to understand that it doesn't happen in a vacuum. I don't care, like I said before, I don't care how slick you think you are, how well-oiled your machine is, there's always a screw loose somewhere. And to what you were saying, Dave, this actually they label this under everyone needs attention. You have to give each child individual attention as well. Whether you play a quick game together for 10 minutes every day, or you schedule once a month outings, give biological children and stepchildren plenty of positive attention so you can strengthen your bond. And I think that's what people don't understand, particularly women. Women think men are automatically bonded to children, and we're not. And I believe I said this last week. Men have to develop a bond. So just imagine how difficult it is for a man to develop a bond with his biological children, who he doesn't have access to that often. And then just factor that by 3 with your children. So you see the difficulties that can really crop up when you don't present a united front. Now, one of the other things that the article suggested is that both parents should attend each children's activity. So your stepchildren, their stepchildren, go to both of them equally, because what it does is it cuts down on the appearance of favoritism. And that was an article, or that was a post that you made in terms of one child thinking that the other parent treats their biological children differently. You want to eliminate even the assumption or the appearance of that type of impropriety.
Well, before that, and some of it, they might have a legitimate point, because if you even think about inside your regular family, some of the kids, like grandkids, they may feel that, like, if you got a sister and you're the son, they may feel that their grandmother treats the sister children better because they're with them on a regular basis, and they may show favoritism toward them compared to the son, who kids may not live with him on a regular basis. So it's a lot to think about or to break down, and you have to be conscious of this. But I think everyday life keeps people going, and you never really sit down and reflect to say, wow, I never looked at it like that, or I don't do that. I love all my kids the same, and all of that stuff. And sometimes I don't know if that's true. People say it, mothers will say it, fathers will say it, but sometimes, and kids know, like, when they're treated differently than the next child. So, they had that saying, oh, I get treated like a stepchild. So it's a lot of truth behind that statement.
I just want to read out Denise Peace comment. Children are innocent, and what are you, a man or woman, whether you are a man or woman, the child is yours or not. If you're a man or woman's life, if you're in a man or woman's life, and they have children, you should accept them regardless if they're yours or not. That's what's wrong. That's what's wrong with our generation. People must remember that they are children, they are watching, and they are listening and having feelings too. That's a good statement in theory, but the problem is the practice. It's the old do as I say, not as I do. So if you have, and it's just like David mentioned with the grandparents. Grandparents are grandparents. They don't give a damn what anybody thinks. They gonna do what they do, and they gonna do what they always have done. Even the younger generation of grandparents that we have now that are in their 40s, which is, to me, is almost unfathomable, but that's where we are as a culture and a society. You know, we have grandparents in their late 30s and early 40s, and they think it's all a raise, and I'm just like, Grandparents used to be reserved for people that were in their 50s. You really had great grandkids. I happen to be a great uncle, you know, which is incomprehensible to me, but that's where I am. So I'm always cognizant of what I do, particularly when I'm out in public, because I'm aware of who I am and what my position in the city, even though this city is small by population terms. We're only a population of 48,000, but I realize as a Black man that I carry a different type of weight.
Hold on.
Man.
It's only 48,000 people in Niagara Falls.
Population has dropped and it continues to drop. That's one of these. This has been for about the last 15 years. There has been a steady what the good author Kenny Hamilton is called importing of poverty. You know, just last week, I believe I mentioned this last week and maybe the week before, with them trying to build, I can't remember the name of the company right now. They're based out of Connecticut. With them wanting to build low-income, let me not call it low-income housing because it's not. It's almost inpatient facilities for, they're going to have, actually, they're not even market rate apartments. They're above market rate apartments, because some of these apartments they're being marketed for rent for $500 and $600. I don't pay that much for a mortgage, and I'm talking about a house, not an apartment. So you know, there's that. But yeah, man, the population has been taking a hit, and what most of the listeners out there don't know is that 50,000 citizens in a city allows that city to qualify for grants. Let me say that again. 50,000 people is the cutoff for a city to be able to qualify for grants, whether they're state or federal grants. So as long as the city can maintain that or stay around that, the city is always going to qualify for grants. And that's not a bad thing, except when the grants are being used to further hurt the productive citizens that are already living there. If you keep importing poverty, eventually you're going to drive out your citizens that actually are productive. And that's a lot of what Niagara Falls is facing. My boy, who has a master's, he just moved out of town I think he's been in Florida now for about 3 years. And he tells me, he said, "Sir, with your experience, your ability to relate to people," he said, "you will come down here and be in management immediately." Which is probably true. My only problem is I don't like hurricanes. I'd much rather have the snow. I enjoy shoveling snow. It's peaceful, quiet. Nobody's out there bothering you. You might have the occasional car whizzing by. But, you know, I feel like my spirit regenerates. So I shovel my walk, the neighbors walk. You know, that's what I do. And it brings me a sense of fulfillment. But let me get back on topic. And now, before I do, I want to address a comment that Antoinette made about toxic masculinity. She says toxic masculinity is not against manhood. It refers to men having to shove their emotions or adhering to stereotypes of what men should be. Example of toxic masculinity: you're not a man if you cry, or it's okay to slap a woman. Antoinette, I'm going to ask you personally, how often have you been slapped by a man? And you can answer in the chat.
Or she could call in and answer.
That would be better. Because there is an all-out attack via education, via social media, and via corporate America. And if you doubt what I'm saying, just reference the Gillette commercial that aired last year, where they made it, quote unquote, toxic masculinity to pursue a female. Think about that for a moment. Since when is it toxic for a man to want to engage with a female that he finds physically attractive? That's how we got here. That's why there's 7 billion people on the world and counting. On the planet, pardon me. The average man is not slapping the average woman. I can assure you that. I never put my hands on a woman in a domestic situation. As a matter of fact, other than security, I've never put my hands on a woman. For me, it's just easy to walk away. Antoinette, you say you saw men slapping big grown women. Growing up, pardon me. So you mean to tell me that you never saw a woman slap a man? Because in American culture, that was considered acceptable for a woman to actually display her displeasure at something a man said or did by slapping him. That was a staple of Hollywood movies and shows. When have you ever seen a man slap a woman in a Hollywood movie other than to discipline her? I'm not saying it was right. I'm just saying it was the culture. Antoinette, and I don't want to belabor the point of toxic masculinity because that's not what this show about. We can tackle that topic some other time. You say it isn't, but society is saying that it is. And this is why I tell people, get outside your sphere of influence and just look at the way that these boys are behaving. They don't know how to approach women. They don't know how to sit down and have a conversation with a female. Why do you think that is? Because it's been educated and beaten out of them that they should approach women. They want women now to approach men. It's all about equality now. But that tips the scales in an unnatural manner. Women have rarely been pursuers, but now they're being looked at as they have to pursue, they have to engage, and they have to make the first step. That's counterintuitive to what all you women know growing up. You never pursued men, unless you were called a slut or a she's fast, was a terminology used in our time. Oh, she's fast, stay away from her. And she's out the pants, stay away from her. She does this, stay away from her. So just bear that in mind. I'm not pulling things out of the air. When I tell you this stuff is out there, it's out there.
Let me add that piece, whatever, like as far as boys and how they talk to girls. I mean, like I tell everybody, middle school is the purest form of, especially counseling in the school system. And these boys, they don't. I tell them on a regular basis. I just had a kid in my office last week. He came to see me like 2-3 times a day. And I'm like, what is going on, dude? Like, what now? Like, and not that it's a bad thing, but it was just odd that he kept coming to see me. But his issue was he kept letting this girl get under his skin. He was like, Mr. Glover, I gave her a warning. I'm about to lose it. And I was like, you gonna fight her? Like, you really gonna hit her? You really gonna do this? And he didn't really see anything wrong. And I was like, yo, you really don't want to, you're in the, and the way the stuff is set up, you're not in a winning, it's not a winning battle for you to engage in that. I like show her that you can walk away, that you can keep cool, but he couldn't do it. Even I was having a mediation with them in my office. She stood up, he got up, and I'm like, really, man? Really? So, and part of that may be that people may say, well, where's his dad? But his dad is in the household. His dad is in the household. So it's a lot of stuff, and reinforcement has to be taught on regular basis, but it's so much going on that in this younger generation that is all about respect. So it doesn't matter who the person is. It could be a kid. It could be a teacher. It could be an older teacher in their 60s. If they feel disrespected, then they're gonna attack. And we're in the wild, wild west in society, pretty much, totally out of control.
Yeah, to follow that up, there was a video that I was watching, and I know a lot of you probably remember the TV show Just Brown, where he's telling women to marry up. And there's nothing wrong with that, provided you can find a man who actually can support you. The only problem with that is that men are losing a lot of jobs with automation, with particularly blue-collar jobs being sent overseas. Pardon me while I set up this alarm, if I can find it. Oh, okay. But a lot of men are losing jobs because they can't find them and they can't maintain them. Okay.
Herb, that alarm is not masculine.
So you have a lot of problem with men being able to support a home, be able to provide for his wife, his mate, and or his children. And for many men, that's the crux of being a man, is to be able to provide. There we go. Being able to provide. So when you have a man that can't provide, he in his own mind is being emasculated. We haven't even talked about the outside forces. So when you have a man in his own mind that can't provide and is living or married to a woman who actually makes more money than he does, then there's automatically some tension there. And the tension could be just from him. It could be coming from him towards his son, from him towards his daughter, from him towards his wife, all because he can't do what men have been doing for thousands upon years, thousands and thousands upon years. So that's where, there's a lot of different facets to what goes into the quote-unquote toxic masculinity atmosphere. And it's just not physical abuse.
Well, look.
It's having to deal with
Go ahead.
It's having to deal with all the societal pressures that come along with that. Go ahead, Dave.
Well, when you think about it and when you think about the blended families, sometimes women bring in men in the household that don't make as much or whatever the case is. And, he must have been laying that good wood and now he's in the household and you're a woman with children. And say if they're fifth, sixth graders, almost teenagers, they pick up on things. So now they're upset and saying, "Mommy, why is he here? Why is he here? I hear you because it's not like how it used to be back in the days where adults didn't really talk in front of kids. When adults was talking or they was on the phone, you had to get out of the room. And we always talk about this. Now, a kid can come sit there, sit in between two adults and just chill, and they absorb, like you said, absorb a lot of information. So they kind of know, Mommy makes more money than him. He really doesn't. Melvin really doesn't make that much. And it's like we're not getting what we used to get, but it's another, like a grown kid, another man in his household, and like far as dinner and all that, we used to be able to get seconds and thirds. Now we got him, and that adds to an element of frustration because now the kids are side-eyeing him, and he better not say anything out of his mouth. And especially if their dad is didn't make it with the mother, but he's still maintained and has a good job, you know that it's inevitable that they're going to come out and say, you ain't my daddy, or whatever the case is.
That's that age old trope. You ain't my daddy.
Yeah, and it's going to be some disrespect. So, hey, another thing to think about when you bring Melvin up in a household, and he's living a life, man. He's in paradise.
Let me get to the last two things that they discussed that is our talking point. The other is the finances, and we've touched on that, and that really can't be underscored because the average American, I think, makes less than $40,000. Trying to figure out what's going to pay. You're trying to figure out if you can put food on the table and keep a roof over your head. I know as a single individual, for me, $40,000 is living well. But keep in mind, I don't have any children, so it's just me. I'm fortunate enough that the decisions I made in my earlier years have set me up to where I can actually live on the wages that I make and do so comfortably. I can, if I want to go, blow $300-400, it doesn't hurt anything. If I want to go to a sporting event, just last week I went to a Bills game, couple $100. I'm looking at going to some Sabres games. It's going to cost me about $300-400. It's nothing. But for the average family, that's a lot of money. That's the gas, electric pay, maybe food for a week. For a family of four, that could be possible, depending on what you eat, your kids, what they eat, and something else to that. I think we actually need to get back to farms, even now they sell things that you can actually grow in your house. I'm not against them by any stretch of the imagination. I have a neighbor, bless her, so who's always trying to either get me to grow plants or to grow a garden. And I saw something on Facebook. I said, you know what? I said, that might be time for me to actually invest in planting a little garden. So that's something that I'll personally be looking into doing is trying to do some gardening, just so I can have some fresh herbs and spices to cook with. Yes, I do cook, people. Just to put that out there. I know that was the point of contention in last week's show, so yes, I do cook.
Sandra said you ain't really putting it down in the kitchen.
Hey, the last time I issued an open invitation to somebody was met with some type of skepticism, so I'm not going to do that again. But the last thing is because you feel like two different families. So you have to give these kids time to process. They call it time to breathe, and I agree. You have to give them time to wrap up what was and embrace what is. Because kids don't move on as fast as adults do. And actually, to be honest, adults don't move on sometimes. Sometimes kids move on faster than adults. They're like, you still crying over that? That was yesterday. And I'm sure you see that a lot, David, in your day-to-day dealings with the youth.
Well, let me give a quick example of that, and I posted it. That I thought it was kind of funny. I had a young lady, I always got to tell my middle school story. I hadn't seen her in this year, but 6th and 7th grade. She's in 8th now. She always was in there, drama loud. So she came in. She actually needed a computer, but I didn't have one, and I told her maybe you need to go to the library. And she's like, well, you see, Mr. Glover, I haven't really been in here because I don't do drama no more. I cut back people that I was hanging with. And then I was like, it's good. You're maturing. How's your grades? And she like, well, they're better than last year. I'm like, well, that's a good thing. So I said, no boyfriend, because I know she always called herself having a boyfriend. She's actually, I haven't had a boyfriend and since the second week of school. And then I was like, so what happened? And I named the boy because I knew who she was supposedly going with last week. And she was like, well, we broke up because I found out from one of my friends he was talking to another girl, a seventh grader. And then I was like, so how did that happen? She said, well, I texted him and pretty much told him it was over with. And then I said, wow. And then I said, so what was his response? And she was like, he sent me the thumbs up sign. And she said, you know, and I'm laughing. I can laugh like that. And because that's the type of relationship we have. And I'm like, wow, just the thumbs up sign. And she's like, because that's because he was guilty. And she's like, so it's awkward because we're in the same gym class, but we don't speak anymore. And like you were saying, Herbert, they just go on. They just go on. And I'm like, damn, thumbs up sign? That's how like an adult would be pissed the hell off if they call themselves checking someone and or they text them, confronting them, and the guy sent up a thumbs up sign. So I just thought that, I was like, that's funny as hell to me. And kept it moving, and they haven't talked since then.
That now they call that ghosting. Usually it's just when one party, usually the male, decides to just break up a relationship and they don't inform the other party. They leave the other party, they're in limbo. It reminds me of the old term Dear John. For those of you who are unfamiliar with the term Dear John, not the TV show, but the TV show was actually predicated on that. Dear John was a common euphemism for a soldier who would oversee the fight, and he would receive a letter from his mate stating that she's moved on. So that's where the old term Dear John comes from, the Dear John letter or something of that nature. But yeah, society is becoming increasingly cutthroat, shall I say, whether they're personal relationships, interpersonal relationships, or particularly in corporate America. It's cutthroat now more so than ever. So it's all about, like David said, you know, he's a prime example. It's about building a brand, building bridges, making alliances, because you never know when you're going to need them alliances.
People don't understand.
You never know when you're going to need somebody's hand to help you out in a tricky situation. And, you know, advice on how to deal with a toxic coworker or a toxic boss, or a boss you feel who is overstepping your boundaries. And nowadays, you know, with the advent of women being in places, to a lot of males, it's uncharted territory. So a lot of males that are under the age of 30, they don't understand how to deal with that female to male hierarchy workplace atmosphere, particularly if they haven't had a man around them who can show them how to navigate a female's emotional range. And when I say a female's emotional range, I'm going from a female being everything is great to everything is bad in a span of 15, 20 minutes. As chaotic as a female nature can be, just imagine how it is for a man who has never had to deal with it, or he's only had to deal with his mother, who was always one way. Because if he grew up, and the reason why I focus on males a lot for this particular example is because women tend to understand each other, they just don't work well together. And mainly because they're always fussing and fighting, they're jostling for position. Because when women get around each other, it's who's the best. Not that men don't do it, men do it in a different way. Men use achievements, where women use a social hierarchy. So whoever is highest in the social hierarchy for women usually sets the parameters of behavior. It's just like the movie Mean Girl. People talk about how bad men are when it comes to bullying. Men have nothing on women. We just don't.
Well, I was just telling somebody, I say probably the biggest bullying that happens in school is usually for females, whatever. Boys, I mean, they may do it, but if it's if you're not giving any resistance back, then there's no need to kind of go back and forth. They like the competitive to go back and forth. Oh, shut up! I'll do this. I'll do that. But if you're someone that's like they're not even giving me anything to work with, no entertainment or whatever, so that I can posture in front of the crowd. They're not gonna bother you. Girls, they just don't stop. They don't stop. And even in relationships, you're like, you still talking about that? They just still keep clawing the back, keep still going at it. So it is, it's always interesting when you look at it like that, that they're relentless when it's as far as that and actual bullying and the little undermining stuff that they do. Boys kind of they'll fall back on it after a while.
And the last thing I want to throw out there before we wrap up is the issue of finances. Now, even though men are making less money than they did a generation ago, they're still out earning women, mainly because the type of jobs that men and women do that are different. Men usually work in blue collar jobs, which tends to pay them a little bit more. But on the back end, they don't have debt. And that's a lot of what drives women's inability to get ahead financially. You figure in the cost of college or university degree, the average degree I think costs now, if you're just going for a bachelor's, non-community college attendees, because community college is a phrase that costs significantly. You're looking at about $40,000 in debt. That's before you even get a job, if you find a job in your chosen career field. A lot of people aren't, so they're forced to either go back to school to learn something else, or they're forced to take a job in an unrelated field that pays them significantly less than what they were projecting. So if you add a kid to that, whether the kid is planned or from a divorce, more often than not, because the woman is the primary custodial, has primary custody, she has to take on the increased burden of supporting that child, even if she is receiving financial assistance from the father in the form of child support or anything from the state. So you look at the physical costs, the emotional costs, the financial costs, that takes a heavy toll on a woman. And that was manifested in that beating, and I'm going to say what it was, that beating of that female to her 6-year-old son.
For that video?
Just think about what she, and I'm not excusing her, I'm just putting this in a little bit of perspective in terms of what I'm discussing. Just think of the stress that she's under being a single mother with 5 children, one just 8-year-old. She can't even handle her own life, but yet she is tasked with the responsibility of fostering the life of 5 other children. How do you think those children's lives are going to turn out?
That's a whole nother show, that particular thing. I didn't care for that, for the simple fact is the age of the child. So I mean, if it's a 13, 14-year-old, some teachers may even turn their back on that, like, because we know that parents could discipline their children, but I think that was just a little excessive, whatever, snatching up the kid and pulling out the belt and whooping her. I mean, that was just too much for a 6-year-old. That was not cool. Not cool. But I understand what you're saying, the frustration of the parent.
That's been my blood. I got into it on a couple posts with a couple people who were trying to rationalize that nonsense, and I'm just like, you can't rationalize that away. You just can't. And a lot of that behavior is what people don't see happening consistently, particularly to Black boys. Put that out there. A lot of people, you know, there's documented evidence that hospitals tend to administer less pain medication to Black men because they think they can endure more pain. So that's not just something that happens in the home, it's something that happens in almost every segment of society. So, you know, just keep that in the back of your mind when you think what you see is discipline. Because I tell people this, and I'll end the show with this, at least this portion. If something isn't being taught, that's not discipline.
Mm-hmm. And I could see where you going with that, because a lot of times uh, when you do have to discipline, there should be that opportunity to have a space where you can kind of explain, this is why I did this, or do you understand where you went wrong at, and how would you handle it differently? So I think that adds to it. But like I said, you know, our time is up. You know, try to respect your time. Said it was from 9 to 10. Sometimes we go a little over. And again, these conversations, it's not going to end because they all run parallel, these different situations. I think this is just a platform to come in and kind of talk about different things, but don't feel free in the future to call in and let's hear your voice, because that's even more powerful. And to me, unless I put my phone on the actual video, whatever, for whatever reason, a lot of stuff get grayed out on the live on watching it on my computer. So that's why I haven't really been responding to comments, unless, like I said, unless I look at it on my phone. But blended families, um, there's a lot to think about. They can work. We know that they're on the rise. If two individuals is in sync and there's communication, then things could happen. But when you just go into something because, oh, he has a good job, it's going to make life easier for me financially, but you're not thinking socially or making decisions based on your kids, then you're going to run into issues as far as that. So it got to be good reasons for both to come together, because at the end of the day, it's still going to have, there's going to have to be a social component, and it's going to have to be a business component to make it work, with along with communication to kind of bridge the gap between everything. You can't get any of that done, then it's just going to be another failed relationship. So Herbert, you still on here? Anything you want to close it out with?
Nope. I'm just posting in the chat about the myth that men have just as much debt as women, and I'll say this: the reason why men don't have the debt that women do is because of higher education costs. Men tend to work in blue collar fields, which means that they can either get out of high school, if the schools that they have taught them a trade, they can go be a bricklayer, work in HVAC, which is heating, ventilation, and air conditioning, go pick up a trade as a plumber, electrician, welder. Those are certifications. You're 2 years and you're gone. You're in the workforce, earning more than likely $50,000 to $60,000 starting out. With a degree, with a bachelor's degree, if you're lucky to find work in your field, you don't start out earning that much money, and you also have the additional set debt that saddles you. Just wanted to put that out there.
Well, and that discussion could go on throughout in the chat, and stay tuned for a watch party. If you want to come tune in again, if you joined in late, and you feel free to add to the commentary on that, and I'll be running a watch party for the next couple of days, and just ways to kind of keep the conversation going. But with that said, I'm out. Stay tuned for next week's show. in closing, don't forget to put in your pre-order for No Friday Foolishness, self-help reflection book about different issues, relationships, friendships, family, loyalty, mistrust, work, health, child drama, the dating game. So, how many times do we get a chance to sit back and reflect and write down based on some of my thoughts as the controversial counselor? And you can kind of journal in on how the thoughts that I've made, how that impacted your world, and then try to move forward. So, put in your pre-order, get the book, support, support, support. We always talk about supporting each other. $15, 20 if I have to mail it to you, and it's not like that's a bill that you got to pay on a regular basis. Let you say, oh, I got to add $20 a month for that. It's one time until I come out with middle school madness that I've been talking about for years. So keep that in mind, people. Hit me up if you're interested. All right, I'm out. Thank you, everybody who chimed in, who tuned in, and feel free to keep the dialogue going. Share it, spread the word on Monday nights because it's about to get real nippy. And unless you into Monday Night Football, you want a good platform, we have it right here for you. I'm out. And again, thank you all. Peace.